This is National Chess Master Rats at chess.com, here to continue my video series of the team match, correspondence team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. This was played on boards 117, high 17s versus mid 1600 ratings. Our man is Sine-Nomine. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But anyway, let's have a look at the game. See what happens. Okay, so we have a Nimzo-Indian, the same-ish variation. If this is a perfectly solid system for white, black just needs to get his development going. A lot of times black will opt to place his pawns on dark squares in this line. And one idea is potentially to get the queen to a5 and eventually a4. The knight goes to c6 and a5. And this bishop goes to a6, and suddenly you're piling all over this pawn. And if you can win that, you may win the game. That's one idea. And one of the reasons black wants pawns on dark squares is because they're covering for the absence of his dark squared bishop. And then his light squared bishop will have a lot of mobility. But black actually opts to put pawns on light squares. And this is fine too. It's just a matter of taste and preference. Now there's a little threat here. Knight g3, so white stops and deals with that. But, you know, in a way the queen's kind of misplaced here. And suddenly black's picking up a little bit of space. And, you know, white's got the bishop pair, but what are his bishops doing? They're not doing anything. The dark square bishop is entombed, and the light square bishop doesn't have a lot of scope. So black just activates his knights, and he'll have the slightly better game. And this weakens e3 a little bit, but it's not something black's able to take advantage of, although he does restrain white from pushing e4, at least for now. And here white opts to get rid of his good bishop, so I'm really liking black a lot here. Black owns the light squares, and white doesn't have a counter for the light squares. His knights are gone, his light squared bishop is gone. Black can just have his way on the light squares here, and that's what he's going to do. Develop the queen, tie down the rook to the a-pawn. A little pressure to restrain e4. Well, although white can play it, I think. Let's see, e4, pawn takes. Yeah, white could play it. Probably should think about doing it simply because it'll give this bishop a little scope and thus hope. But white just prefers to stay quiet and solid, build up his position. But now black is eyeballing the e3 square. Now he gets e4 in. And unfortunately, this move just drops a pawn. White did not have to lose that pawn. And strategically, I think black is winning, but black makes it a little difficult on himself. Okay, first, he didn't need to take this pawn, but it's okay that he did. The reason I say he didn't need to take it is because, well, what I said earlier, black owns the light squares. White has no counter. Now, the advantage of having a good knight versus a bad bishop is forever gone. But black is still for choice. And figures he better get his pawns going. And white tries to regroup his rooks. Now, a move I might consider is g6, just to restrain f5. And if white tries something like g4, maybe black can generate some threats on the king side due to the advanced and weak pawns. G6 being a purely positional move. Anyway, he makes a logical move. Here he's attempting to play a5. And, I'm sorry, b4. And here I think black kind of outwits himself a little bit. Let's back it up slightly. Why not play b4 right here, right now? Okay? What's white going to do? If white takes, these pawns are deadly. You know, this game is over shortly. Okay, so white can't take. What can he do? Well, he can counterattack a pawn. Okay, fine. Let him counterattack it. Let's see. You can't go behind the pawn because of a pin. What about this move? Pawn takes, queen takes. and now queen b4. And again, white can't take. He's going to have to deal with his queen, and this gives black time to take care of business and not run into trouble with this pawn on a5. But what black does is kind of it's kind of anti-positional. I'll show you what he does here. As you said, he outwitted himself. He played a4. Now the pawn is safe, but the mobility of these pawns is now pretty crippled. Black can't do much, and maybe white could have tried to blockade this up. We'll see here in a moment. Because black is going to win this game on a blunder here in just a matter of a move or two. And here it comes. Obviously, from moving too quick, how could white play this move? He just totally overlooked queen takes and kapow, a rook down, and it's hopeless, and white resigned. But what can he do different? What can black do different? Well, since black pushed a4, that weakened the b4 square. Let's go take it. Now this pawn is under duress. Okay, black protects it. I don't know, either rook, I guess. Let's go attack it again. If you protect it too quick, you're going to drop b5. So you push it, and it comes under pressure. Now the pawn it's a pain in black's or white's side, but I don't know. You got to be careful here. Let's see. There's no need to give up this pawn for free. It looks to me like white's got some kind of some chances here. Black's going to have to re-coordinate his forces and maybe switch over to a kingside attack. It becomes a longer chess game. Certainly much longer than what happened when you drop a rook. Game ends immediately. Anyway, I thought it was overall well played by Sine-Nomine, but let's look at the other game too. Let's get that one done. And flip the board. Why does it put this thing way down there instead of the beginning? Oops, I got to start over. I hit a white to move and black to move thing, and that wiped out the PGN. Okay, now our man is white, so flip the board is the correct one to push. Okay, so we have a Sicilian defense, and it turns into a dragon. And I'm thinking that, we'll see when we get there, I'm thinking that white really misplayed this. King h1, f4, bishop f3 is one idea. White plays h3. Now, if you've been watching these videos, you see me condemning these rook pawn moves. I'll criticize this too, in that it was better to go with my plan. So maybe the queen d2 move was a little premature. Maybe since you're keeping a knight out of g4 now, well, are you? There's always these tricks where this thing comes under fire. Maybe this is time to play knight b3, eliminate that idea, and then go forward with f4 and bishop f3. And this system against the dragon is pretty even. And black tries to play for occupying the c4 square, especially with a knight, to get the knight in there, and black's doing okay. So h3 doesn't hurt white, other than the fact that he's not going to get a very ambitious setup here. Okay, he's far removed from the idea of f4 and bishop f3 that I was talking about. But even then, black is equalizing. This is a really simple system that holds equality for a long time. But I do believe that white starts to misplay it, and I think black missed a golden opportunity to get a good game. And here, right here and now, I think I would love to have black here. But black doesn't understand his plan. I mentioned it earlier. You need a knight in on c4. Okay, let's play this knight here right now. Let's talk about this. What does white do? Well, you can go back and try this f4 plan. Let's just try it. Now this knight hops in. Now there's pressure on b2. this bishop, white's going to give back a bishop here. Okay, so take. Now, for what it's worth, black has the bishop pair. I think that's that's worth a lot in a position that's reasonably open. So let's back it up and find another idea for white. Let's suppose white wants to keep the bishop pair. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, you got to make room for this bishop to retreat. Let's bring the queen back here. Now knight c4, bishop c1. Now this queen is kind of tied down, and it's not very mobile, because let's just imagine that white plays f4 and queen g3 at some point. He always has to be on the lookout for this knight takes a3 trick, which proves that the pawn on b2 is overworked. And anyway, I think this gives black a very, very reasonable game, if not the better position. White just doesn't have any kind of an ambitious setup. And an interesting thing about the Sicilian defense, strategically, the move 3d4 is a mistake, because white's trading a center pawn for a wing pawn, yet it's the main line. And generally, as a rule, if black can usually do more on the c file than white can do on the d file. You both have a half-open file. Kind of funny how it works out. Yet, white wins the majority of games. Well, not the majority. I guess there's a lot of draws, but white wins more often than he loses. Why is this? Well, because white does get open and free development. White often does get a kingside attack going, but it's not clear at all how white's going to generate a kingside attack from this position. But I think black's got the better prospects in the long run here with knight a5. It's just thematic, and if you're going to play a Sicilian defense, you need to know it. And a3, it's just one of those weakening moves. It allows that little trick I was showing, a potential knight takes. But b5, it's easy to see why a player would do this, and because it's thematic in a Sicilian type position. But there's one thing kind of wrong with it here. If you're going to push this b5, a lot of times you want this rook on the b file so that you can push b4 and get a half-open file to work on. Oh yeah, you got to cover a6, details. But it's just one of the ideas that you do. And still, black wants to play this knight into c4, and he can do it without having to stop and play b5 first. Okay, so let's move on. Now he plays f4. Now, I think e5 is wrong. And it's wrong for all the reasons I stated. Mainly because this is the plan you want to try. Now, this also shuts off the diagonal of this wonderful bishop. Well, you don't want to restrict the options to your pieces, okay? The scope of your pieces. But I think black is still okay, and I think black still has the better prospects, even though black has shut in his own bishop. But here, I guess he's trying to avoid any kind of position where this ends up being pinned, or this gets liquidated and drop a piece. But I think queen c7 should be okay. But then, I don't know, knight d5 can come in. Like I say, this opening up the d file suddenly gave white some play. So black opts for simplistic things, but I think black is still okay. And even though the bishop is retreating to c8, I still like black, because these two pawns are holding back these three pawns. Okay, and the knight to c4 idea is still there; it hasn't gone away. And now white plays b4 to stop it, but this is to me is a serious weakening move, because you've just handed over c4, you've weakened c3. And even the pawn on c2 can be a problem. So this is the time black needs to start thinking about using his knights. You got to be careful on the setup, but let's get a knight to c4 if we can. Let's try to get one knight to b6 and one knight to d6, and just drop something in on c4. Let's try to get something going on that half-open c file. But the moves black plays don't follow any kind of plan close to this. Now white's able to start generating some of his own threats. F7 is a latent problem, and we will see. So maybe this is, now there's a threat on F6. Maybe H6 kicking that knight out of there might have been better. It does bring this knight back into play, but this knight actually turns out to be very much in play on this square, as we will see. And now there's a trade of pieces, and suddenly White has pressure on F7, but Black is countering with pressure of his own on the weak queenside pawns. So possible is knight C2. It's a possible move, and on rook takes, Black can just play bishop takes E4 because White can't take it. His rook would hang. But he puts the knight back where he's not helping much, shuts off the pressure on E4, and now I think White's picking up a clear advantage. And all of a sudden, White is up 2 pawns, and any chance Black had is vanished. So the knight A5 method never worked. Getting to get the knight to C4, another alternative path to C4, was never even commenced. So Black had the better prospects here, but now he's down 2 pawns with no hope, and in just a matter of time. And Black's going to commit one more mistake here in a moment. There it is. Why is that a mistake? Well, here I'll tell you why. It's real simple. The best chance Black has to hold this, and there's no guarantee, is to trade knights, because then you get bishop opposite colors. But now Black has put his knight over to the side, and White has a very dominating move. You might want to pause the video and see if you can find it. It's not a tactic, it's a dominating move. It's a strong positional move. Okay, you resume the video. Here it is, bishop c5. I hope you found it. What this does is basically it forces, at some point, White will trade off his dark squared bishop for that black knight, remain 2 pawns up, and there'll be nothing Black can do about it other than lose the knight versus bishop ending, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So there it goes. It's gone. And notice that the only target Black really has is E3, and White's got that covered doubly. And now it's a matter of using this knight. E5 is a weakness, and he's going for E5. And now there's nothing Black can do. He's going to lose the pawn on E5. He can't afford to go down 3 pawns, but here he's just reached a lost king and pawn ending. And after G6, he resigned. White will just, if Black brings his king up, White will escort the pawn in. If Black retreats his king, White's king just goes pawn hunting. I mean, you could beat Magnus Carlsen with White in this position, okay? And you would. So, sustained defense is a great defense for Black. It offers a lot of possibilities, but Black didn't understand those possibilities. Therefore, he didn't get any chances going. I thank you so much for your time, and I'll be back as soon as I can with another video. Take care.